It's hard to believe that less than 5 months ago, this was the whole of Jurassic World Northwest, but this is where we are now, and we've got just one more habitat to build. Let's go. With this being the final habitat in Jurassic World Northwest, last week I asked you guys to vote in a poll between Ankylosaurus, Giganotosaurus, Saurolotitan, and Yutyrannus, and you guys chose Ankylosaurus. So for the last time, we'll send our helicopters off to get some DNA, and we'll start building. The space we set aside for this build is the second habitat in the Cretaceous area, and the Cretaceous area doesn't actually have an entrance at the moment, so we're going to build one now. We're going to use the Jurassic Park gates and just get a new sign on there to reflect the time period that this area of the park is set in. We'll sync in one of the Jurassic World signs, double up the text so that we can get a nice drop shadow in. And there we go. That is the entrance to the Cretaceous area. Let's take a look at where we're going to be building. The Ankylosaurus will live in between the Triceratops house and the tropical house. And I'm so glad that you picked them, because I have a confession to make. I planned this habitat for Ankylosaurus all along, but events overtook me in terms of updates and things like that, and it ended up being the final habitat in the zoo, so I thought I'd let you guys choose, and I think you made a great choice. In fact, this rectangle here is the exact size that we need for an Ankylosaurus habitat. So the first thing we're going to do is widen the path that goes alongside the Triceratops house so that we can get guests closer to the habitat that we're going to build in here. The paths going off to the right here take people down to In with the Raptors, and then if we carry on along this path, they'll get to the tropical house. Just need to move a couple of repeater substations out of the way, and now we can start building the habitat. Ankylosaurus was one of the last dinosaurs to exist. They lived right up to the extinction event that ended the reign of the dinosaurs. And I thought it would be interesting to incorporate that into their habitat design somehow. Might be slightly cruel, but I think the Ankylosaurus will be fine with it. What we're going to do is have a big water feature in the middle of the habitat, and we're going to make that look like an impact crater. So we're going to have a pool of shallow water with a little bit of deep water in the middle. And for realism as well, we're going to build some concrete sides to the pool, so it looks like it's actually been constructed rather than the standard, very natural looking water sources that we get in the game. So we'll just use a few of the non-grid plaster pieces to create one section of what would be the side of the pool, get it to where we want it. It'll need to be a little bit longer than that, so we'll just add one more of those pieces in. It's amazing what you can build with just 5 of the same piece in this game. All right, there we go, that's done. And then we'll select them all, turn them into a group, and then go into the group, copy them, flip them around the other way, and then move them to the other side of the pool. Once we've got them in the right place, then we can just select the whole group and start duplicating these and spinning these into position. Make sure they line up nicely, and then once we've got a few of them in, we'll just select all of those, put them into their own group. There's no grid pieces in here, so we can do that simply. And then we've got a nice big chunk of the pool sides here that we can just spin into place until we've got the whole thing done. Don't worry about that little bit that doesn't line up perfectly there. This will all be covered up with terrain and rocks and things like that anyway, so that's not going to be visible. And if you're enjoying this, by the way, don't forget to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel. And with a few more spins, we have our realistic pool here for the center of the impact crater. Now, it doesn't look very much like an impact crater at the moment, so let's sort that out. Firstly, we're going to get the terrain nice and smooth around here so we get the proper shape, and then we're going to start filling it in with some rocks. So we'll use some of the new rebirth rocks, big fan of these, around this side of it, and get kind of quite a high jagged pile of rocks here that might have been blown away by the impact. And we'll have some lower rocks on the other side as well. I think the dark black in amongst the brown in these rocks works really nicely for this situation. We'll make the water darker as well with some of the standing water brush. And then what we're going to do is surround the crater with dead trees and have them all bent backwards away from the crater to make it look like they were knocked over by the impact. So we're going to use loads of the different broken trees for this, and just surround the whole crater. Make sure that each tree is pointing backwards at the right angle to form a kind of outward facing circle around the crater. I think that will really sell the idea of what we've got going on here. I've had a lot of comments recently about how I arrive at the sizes for the dinosaurs in this park. So I've put a link on screen now to the Triassic Forest episode of this series where I show you exactly how to do it. All the dinosaurs in this park are bred to have the humble and accommodating genes, which means they will be happy in a smaller space as you can have in the game. Definitely something to bear in mind when you're building in standard mode. Now I want some smoke to be coming out of this crater to further sell the idea. There's a few pieces in the game that do that. but for some reason they only work if they're attached to a building. So the nearest building to here is that little repeater substation. So I've gone into that building group and then added some chimney pieces. Some of them are smoking, some of them aren't. I have absolutely no idea how this mechanic works. It doesn't seem to make any sense, but we just need to find the ones that are smoking and bury those in these rocks here. And we'll just keep doing that until we've got enough of them in here to get an impressive amount of smoke coming out of it. Speaking of comments, the most popular comment I'm getting at the moment is what is going to happen after Jurassic World Northwest is done. So all I will say at this point is there is definitely another part coming. I already have it planned out. It is going to be very different to this one, and I'm very excited to get started with it. That's the last chimney. Let's take a look at our impact crater. That is starting to look really nice. So let's turn our attention to the guest barriers. We're actually going to have 3 different types of barriers for this habitat. The main ones along this path here for the guests will simply be copied from the Triceratops habitat, because I really like these and it'll be nice for them to match up, seeing as they're right next to each other. So these incorporate a fairly simple ditch to keep the Ankylosaurus in, and then a wall low enough for the guests to see over. We're going to have a custom viewing gallery as well, just so the guests will actually look at the dinosaurs, and also because I thought it'd be fun to do a little bit of building design work. So the guest barriers will go all the way down this side of the path here. And then on the other side, we're going to have a mixture of rocks and the heavy-duty fences to keep the Ankylosaurus in. It's quite a lot of work getting these custom barriers in and making sure they line up nicely with the path and curve properly, etc. But it's definitely worth it in the end when you get the ditch in. We'll put some big fences at the back here. We'll make them a little bigger than this in the end, just to make sure the Ankylosaurus has got lots of space. And then we'll join those up with the viewing gallery. And there we go, that's the basic barriers in, and we've almost got ourselves a habitat. Let's move on to some more detailing. First thing I want to do is use some of these rocks to line the dinosaur side of the dry moat that we're using to keep them in. This one rock in particular, with the kind of straighter edges and the slightly almost stacked look to it, I really like for using for things like this. And in the new rebirth colors, it looks even better than normal. So we'll make sure these all join up really nicely and just keep placing them down along this moat. Once we've got a good chunk of them, we'll just select them all, copy those across, and that's that filled in. We'll get some more forest in as well, just using the conifer forest mainly, as we have done throughout this park. I want quite a lot of forest around the impact crater to highlight the lack of forest in the impact crater. And then we'll use some simple sand panels to cover up the joins where the path goes into the viewing gallery, and then we can start building that. I thought we could have some fun with this viewing gallery. What I want to do is create a design that brings to mind the head of the Ankylosaurus and build that as a facade on the front of the building. So I'm using these little panel trim pieces here to create the outline of it. They go together really nicely. There's no joins between them, so they all look like one piece that's been molded, which works great for this. So we're going to run this along the bottom of the front of the building, slightly off the ground, just makes it look more interesting than if it's joined up with the ground. And then on the other side, we're going to start getting the shape in of the Ankylosaurus's head. It'll be very stylized. Just something that kind of subtly brings that to mind, I think will work nicely. So we're going to do it by eye, and we'll just create a curve that's going to go up round this side of the building, and just keep copying pieces and experimenting with the angles and how many to place at each angle until we get a shape that takes us round towards the top of the building and then curves back in towards the building again at the top. So we get the kind of, I don't really know what kind of shape it is really, it's sort of slightly triangular on each end and then straight across the middle. Once we've got half of that done, we'll start filling the rest in with some wooden planks. So I'm going to use these ones. These are pretty much the only kind of straight wooden plank in the game. So we'll use these, we'll get into a more natural wood color, and then we'll start stacking them on top of each other. We're going to rotate this one here, so we're seeing a different part of the texture to the one below it, so everything doesn't look the same. And then we will select 2 of them and start copying them up until we get to the top of the structure that we're building. And we'll do that manually, so there's a slight difference in the spacing between each piece, again, just so it looks a bit more natural. Once we've got them up to the top, like so, then we can start moving them along to the end. So I'm using the shorter ones here, just so we can make sure it goes into the border without sticking out the other side. Once we've got those in the right position, we can just select one of the longer pieces, and using position snap, we can really easily just keep adding these on to the ones that we've already got down until we've got it long enough to where we want it to be. Then we're going to finish off the border just by copying a long line across the top and then creating a new line that goes round the doors here. So we'll just rotate it, make sure it's in the right position, and then we can start adding it around these doors so that the guests have actually got somewhere to get into the building. Always useful. We're not going to leave these doorways empty like this either. We'll put some proper doors in a minute. But for the moment, we're just going to get this last piece here in exactly the right place to cover up the blue part. And then we can select the whole end of this border part and then just copy that and rotate it and put it on the other end as a mirror image so everything matches up nicely. I'm a big fan of this postmodern style of building, which kind of combines the flowing lines of modernism with a lot more ornamentation like all the wood pieces. And with that in mind, we're going to make each second wood piece a lighter shade of brown, which just makes everything stand out more and look more attractive. And now we've got the colours established, we can finally just add loads more of the long wooden pieces into place so that the whole thing is filled in with these alternating stripes of wood. Don't worry about the ones going across the door, we'll get rid of those in a second. It'll all either be deleted or just moved a little bit until they're in the right place. And there we go, that's the basics of the front done. Let's get the doors in. These custom doors are made from glass pieces and a few metal pieces. We built them for the Triceratops house originally. Just change the colour to more closely match this building, and then we're going to scale them up a bit as well so they completely fill these door frames in here. And with a few more of the panel pieces, that's the facade done, and we can move on to the side. On the side, we're going to create a very similar shape and fill it in with the same wood pieces, so we get a nice continuity between the side and the front of the building. We'll get a shape that joins up nicely with the wall for the guests as well. You can see in the top left, I've got these wooden pieces favorited. So good to be finally able to have favorites in this game. Makes it so much easier to move between the pieces. And then all we need to do is add a sign onto the front. So as usual, we'll create a sign using two sets of the same text, with one of them darker and slightly behind the front one to get a drop shadow. And then we'll position that nicely on the front of the building. A quick Ankylosaurus statue stood on top of one of the new rocks, and a few plants here and there. And that is the Ankylosaurus viewing gallery done, and we can finish off the habitat. I've checked in the hatchery what plants the Ankylosaurus wants to eat, and we're going to start adding those in there. They want ground fruit and ground leaf. So I'm going to add some of the ground fruit behind the impact crater. Those big cycads look pretty cool. Make a nice contrast to all the conifers that we've got around. And for the rest of it, I'm going to use the Temperscaya, because it does match in nicely with the conifers, so we can sort of graduate from that into the conifers wherever we like around the habitat, and just make sure we've got enough foliage in here for the Ankylosaurus to eat. You can see how the forest basically covers up the big heavy juicy fences at the back. And with the foliage in, that is the Ankylosaurus habitat complete. Before we go and get the dinosaurs and take a look at it though, we have one final very important thing to do in Jurassic World Northwest, and that is a boundary fence. We now have 150 dinosaurs in this park from almost 40 different species, and if any of them were to escape from their habitats, we would certainly want to have a boundary fence around the whole park to prevent them from getting any further away. So I'm going to use the heavy duty fence, which is unpowered, which is important when we're placing down about 4 million pieces of it, and surround the entire park with it. You can really see exactly how big the park is when we're doing this. We're just up around the sauropod swamp and Cretaceous cruise areas at the far end of the park here, and then coming back down towards Cretaceous skies, in with the raptors, and then back to the car park at the front. And we're going to take an aerial view of the entire park at the end of the video so you can see that. But we're going to join this boundary fence up with the fence next to the entrance. And that is the final part of Jurassic World Northwest complete. Let's check out the Ankylosaurs. Here they come. Absolute tanks. I love these guys. I've got them in the Jurassic Park 3 colouring, I think it is, which I think works really nicely. Before we get to their habitat, let's take a quick look at the entrance to the Cretaceous area. I love the view of the mountains through the gates. And here's the habitat. I think it nestles in really nicely between the tropical house. Entrance is looking good. Looks good from the air. Let's get inside and see the view from the viewing gallery. I used some of the cypress swamp brush in the impact crater as well, so we could get some more mist in here to go with all the steam that we added. I think the Ankylosaurus look awesome walking around this crater. Such angry looking animals. It's a quick view of the guests walking past the habitat. This is where we started today. This is where we are now. Cretaceous area, along with the rest of the park, of course, is finally finished. And here it is. This is the whole of Jurassic World Northwest It is absolutely huge. I can't believe we built all of this in 5 months. I had a lot of fun doing it. Thank you so much for watching this series. I had no idea how well this series would do when I started it. We'll be back next week, of course, to take a tour of the entire park. Thanks especially to those of you who've joined the Explorers Club, and I'll see you next week for the tour. Bye.